Dear beloved of Bethlehem, it is so good to be with you at this 152nd convention of the Diocese of Bethlehem. It was so good last night for me to introduce to you Bishop Clarence and Michelle Bester. Bishop Bester, we are so grateful for your witness and your ministry. And thank you for stirring the waters again. Thank you. It is also so good for us to be joined this day by Bishop Scanlan. Congratulations. I believe you just had your 8th ordination anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. You wear it well? What a gift it is for me to have a trusted, beloved colleague right next door. It is so good for me to introduce to you the Reunification Discernment team. They're kind of sitting at this front table and a few stragglers behind them. Welcome especially Drew and Mike, Gio, Jim, John, and Jane. There's a lot of Juz in there, like Joy. We are so grateful to have you in the Diocese of Bethlehem this day. We also, as you know, have members serving from our own diocese, and they will reintroduce themselves in a short moment. Beloved, it was 5 years ago, September 15, 2018, that I was consecrated as your 9th bishop in the Episcopal Diocese of Bethlehem. And since that time, we have journeyed together. We have experienced challenges and heartbreak, but unimaginable joys as well. Today, we have among us 2 canon missioners, one in the north and one in the south. We have a canon for mission resources and COO, a canon for racial reconciliation and community engagement. We have a bookkeeper who holds not only the numbers but also our collective memory. We have a new Safe Church consultant to help us become more accountable and keep the most vulnerable among us safer. And a missioner for finance and administration who has made the events of these last 2 days possible. Do you have your tiara yet? A little bit of history, brief history, recent history. At the Diocesan Convention of 2020, the envisioning team presented a new convocation and assembly model and outlined 5 priorities that have helped guide our diocese for these last 5 years. You know them well. Vibrant and stable congregations, racial justice and advocacy for the most vulnerable, lay and clergy formation, creating new faith communities, and diocesan partnerships. To support these priorities, a mission resource committee was formed, a racial justice and reconciliation task force was commissioned. We partnered with the Episcopal Divinity School at Union to provide Anglican social justice formation. Latinx congregations were planted at Nativity Cathedral and Church of the Mediator in Allentown. And an annual lay formation event was launched via Gather. We also formalized dialogue between the standing committees of DioBeth and the Episcopal Diocese of Central Pennsylvania. Envisioning and imagining the possibilities for partnership. We have much to celebrate, and more work is required. I don't need to tell you that the onset of COVID continues to impact each of our worshiping communities, shifting attendance, financial constraints, unresolved conflict that return to the surface, and an expanded need for community support and missional outreach. The landscape of our denominations and I'm talking about neighboring denominations, have also been shifting during this time. You may not know, but the 5 Pennsylvania judicatories of the United Church of Christ, UCC, you work closely with those congregations in your own communities. 5 judicatories in Pennsylvania are in discernment to merge into a single judicatory that will be 600 congregations across the Commonwealth. The 2 Presbyterian judicatories that overlap the Diocese of Bethlehem and portions of Central Pennsylvania have already merged, and our Lutheran and Moravian colleagues are facing significant restructuring and a clergy crisis as well. All of this since 2018. But let me shine a bit of light on this current moment. Since our Pentecost Dawn message in May of 2021, I have visited nearly all of the 57 congregations of this diocese. And for those who've been there in your community, I've been sharing 2 stories, well, maybe 3, but pretty much been talking about donuts, Luna's Donuts, and also Big Daddy Abel from the Amish Outlaws. Now, for those of you who don't believe me, that is Big Daddy Abel, and that's the 2 of us at the Schuylkill Fair in 2019. If you haven't heard the story, it's coming. Might even be in Central Pennsylvania at their convention Eucharist next Saturday in Happy Valley, so watch out. Yet, more than the stories, I hope you've heard me talk about our need to take stock of our spiritual home. And I've asked us to look at our footings. One of those footings is the Episcopal Church's commitment to the beloved community. A commitment that guides the work of many faith communities and denominations towards racial reconciliation, healing, inclusion, and justice. It's what Bishop Bester is building in Wangaratta. And I've named also our current realities. I don't need to tell you that we're living in days of horrifying division and violence. Wars are raging, institutions are slowly crumbling, and we've lost trust in the highest of offices. Even a purple shirt doesn't give you what you need or what you used to have. Civility is hanging by a thread. If there's ever a time for the church to speak out boldly in love, it is now. And we are called to a lofty prophetic perch. Now, I also want to tell you what I've been hearing from you in these visitations. Some of these are in quotes. Bishop, the response of our people is remarkable. They continue to give even when we couldn't gather in person. Not only are we able to pay our full fair share, but we have money for needed repairs. Bishop, the number of people coming to our community suppers has doubled. Everywhere I go, I hear of food insecurity and the enormity of your response. Food, clothing, shelter, mental health resources, and a slew of other needed resources, from the smallest to the largest of congregations. Bishop, let me show you our new live streaming equipment, thanks to the diocese. Now, I would ask that if you're a member from one of the following congregations, that you please raise your hand. St. Paul's, Montrose, Christ Church, Susquehanna, St. Mark's, New Milford, St. Mark's, Moscow, Grace, Allentown, Trinity, Mount Pocono, St. Luke's, Scranton, St. Gabriel's, Douglasville, St. Luke's, Lebanon, Trinity, Pottsville, North Parish, Nativity, Bethlehem, St. Barnabas Center. Are you still raising your hands? I don't see any hands up. Get those hands up. I'll make you stand. St. Bridget's, Nazareth, Mediator, Allentown, Trinity Easton. Raise your hands high. These 17 congregations or entities received diocesan grants to support, you put your hands down now, sorry, to support exciting and newly envisioned ministries, such as community building technology, communication supports, youth ministry, food ministry, recovery ministry, campus ministry, restorative justice ministries, and expanded Latinx ministry, and so much more. Over $160,000 has been distributed since 2021, bringing needed resources to those most vulnerable on the ground. And that's the hope. The hope is to shift resources to congregations and those most in need. Ask your neighbors, those whose hands were raised high, how they got a grant. Bishop, we doubled and then tripled our membership over the last year. Where do you ask? I mentioned it last night. Our two recently planted Latinx congregations at the Cathedral Church of the Nativity, Bethlehem, and Church of the Mediator in Allentown, our fastest growing congregations. A shout out to our leadership, the leaders of these communities who are adapting and learning and responding in love. This is one of my favorites that I hear. Bishop, we're getting older. There are fewer of us to do the work. What can we do differently? You got to hear how energized I am when I hear that. Because gone is the question, are you going to close us? Instead, we hear, or I hear, hard truths, openness to new partnerships, and a curiosity. Oh, the curiosity. And this is in especially some of our smallest congregations. Your community spirit, your fellowship, the way you share a priest or an organist, an administrator, a sexton, a bookkeeper. You partner with neighbors, navigating a vital pathway, the pathway forward. I'm going to name a few of you. You can stand if you want to, because you should. Ashland, Schuylkill-Haven, West Pittston, Susquehanna, New Milford, German, Mountaintop, Drifton, Dundas, Palmerton. The list goes on. What incredible ministry you're doing. With very few resources. Bishop, thank you. Wait for it. Thank you for sending us Canon Barbara, or Canon Melinda, or Canon Sandy, or Canon Steve, or Cindy, or Paula, and now Timothy. That warms my heart like no other gratitude. Our dream was for shared authority and for shared leadership. And that appears to be taking shape in the regions of our diocese. Where is Convocation 2? Raise your hand if you're in Convocation 2. Yes, scattered around. Convocation 2. The way you are bringing folk together electronically, with your newsletter and in person, is spectacular. You are a model for all of us. And Convocation 6. I'll never forget, on a Zoom call, how those Schuylkill region congregations gently shared their successes and learnings with the Carbon County churches as they envision a new partnership. The blessing of 20-plus years of living and loving in partnership. Well done. And there's still quite a bit of talk during visitations about pickles, which is good news. Pickles have now been replaced by puzzles, not quite as snazzy as a pickle, but puzzles, which will soon be replaced by baseballs. You wait till you hear more about our spring training or our Gather 24 event and where it'll be located. But the theme is baseball. Even though it's the wrong team, the theme is baseball. Formation for All is catching on. And lastly, you have asked about Patty or me or our family, and you've asked if we love it here. Now that's another sermon. That's my celebration of new ministry sermon. And the answer is a resounding yes. Oh, how we've found a home here in Diobeth. Like living stones, we are being built into a spiritual house with Jesus as our sure foundation. We may not yet be fully quarried. We're still adding sediment, some more than others, but we're living stones. Our theme today is Stewards of God's Grace, discerning together. And soon you will hear from Bishop Audrey and from the Reunification team. But I want to close with a word or two about discernment. Stay with me. Today we gather with the discerning questions of possible reunification between the Episcopal Diocese of Bethlehem and the Episcopal Diocese of Central Pennsylvania. And while we're a people serving in two different dioceses, we serve one God and one mission. We are a people, as Canon Barber would say, with many particularities, yet we serve one God and one mission. We are a people with many gifts and talents, yet we serve one God and one mission. 1 Peter reminds us that each of us are given gifts entirely by God's grace. We're not given them because we have earned them or deserved them. We are given them with the understanding that each of us has a role to play in service to each other and to the world around us. We are created for community, and God willing, in our coming together with our varied gifts, we shall function as the community and the body of Christ. In the spirit of St. Paul, not everyone can be a foot. Everyone can be an eye, an arm, a leg, and so forth. Yet these parts come together to make the whole. Our times, this moment, demands that the people of God become whole, because the world is thirsty for what our church offers. In a few moments, you will hear more about the particularities, the nuts and bolts of our two dioceses, but let us not lose sight of this. We are called to shed the light of Christ into the communities we serve and into the world in which we live. If in a year or so the Spirit so moves the hearts of folk in Bethlehem and Central Pennsylvania to share dreams, hopes, and geographical space, plethora of resources, spiritual and material, so be it. Yet we must never forget we serve one God and one mission, one Jesus, and we must not wait to join hands in building the beloved community, where justice, equality, and love is the rhythm of the day, not only within our worshiping communities, but also throughout the world. For some, this is a time of many questions, many uncertainties, and many fears. It is also a time of great excitement, curiosity, and reimagining. Because as a unified people serving one God and one mission, our impact in these troubling times can be all the greater. May God guide our hearts, minds, and souls in this time of discernment. May all that we say and do reflect the grace bestowed to each of us, and may we be filled with the grace of God. Become worthy stewards of such grace. Please consider carefully your Reunification Discernment Committee's call to a continuation of our season of exploration. We are hewn from the same rock, and upon this rock, with Jesus as our cornerstone, we will continue to find our footing. Join me in becoming more of the beloved community, hopeful and justice-focused voices in this tension-laden time. Let us walk together in love. This time, I would like to invite Bishop Scanlan to come forward and to say a few words.
So I was keeping track, that was 19 minutes, which is 4 minutes more than I get at our convention. Bishop Nichols, Bishop Bester, beloved people of the Diocese of Bethlehem, and a few stragglers from the Diocese of Central Pennsylvania. It is so good to be with you here today. Really, really good. Especially good because I'm not in charge. Now, next week I will have my turn and Kevin will get to sit off the stage and hang out. But it is a joy, really, to be able to be a party to your convention, to see how you do it. I've been taking some notes. And to just share in the joy of being together as one body in Christ. Your one body, our one body, all together. I do want to offer a word of gratitude for the work that you have allowed us to do in this last year. This Reunification Committee has been working very hard. We've met at least monthly. We were working so hard that I had to take a sabbatical in the middle of it. But I am very pleased and very impressed with the research, the data collection, and then the analysis of that data that has been done, and that's what they will be offering to you this morning. As I sat and listened to Bishop Nichols' address, I was reminded again and again that we're really not that different. We are not that different. Yes, we're neighbors. And we all love shoe-fly pie, amen? And we all love chicken corn soup. Is that a thing here? Yeah, okay. And 3 of your 5 priorities are our priorities. Your work towards becoming the beloved community, the work for racial justice. That's one of our 5 priorities. Your work in formation, also one of our priorities. We have our Stevenson School, and several of you have been students at our Stevenson School. And then the diocesan partnerships, of course, as Bishop Nichols has named, also one of our priorities. And so already we are walking together, doing so much of this work in partnership, just across a few lines. We also all love Jesus. We all love Jesus. And one of my concerns about this work that we've been doing is that we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We don't want to forget why we're doing this. And I appreciate at the conclusion of your message reminding us that we are one people with one mission, with Jesus at the center as our rock and our foundation. And so while some of what we'll be thinking about, if you give us another year to work, some of what we'll be thinking about is technical. We'll be talking about money and budgets and how those two align. We'll be talking about staff. We'll be talking about regional groupings and distribution. A lot of what Ron Heifetz would call technical fixes. But the truth is that we do that, we plan for this in service to Christ, in service to God, using the church as the vehicle of that mission. And so I don't want us to forget Jesus. My bishop's address isn't finished yet.
Oh.
I was working on it last night with a cat on my lap and a hockey game on. So I'm not sure how that's going to come out. But the truth is that I'm giving an address like yours, but I'm giving it on paper because orally I want to speak with our folks about discernment. And you did that also.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we understand that what we're entering into together, now that the door is open a little bit. You know, this year we've been gathering data, analyzing data, preparing for today. My hope is that given another year that we'll open that door to discernment with all of you. And discernment is not simple decision making. Discernment is finding the will of God at the center of all that we will offer you. And so I'm going to focus on that, I think.
Great.
We'll see where that gets us.